So now that we know the basics of progressive web apps and manifest.json, we're going to focus on Service Worker, which is the tool we're going to use to make our app work offline. So first, what is a Service Worker? A Service Worker is going to be a small script that the browser can run in the background, separately from your web page or any other JavaScript in your app. As a result, the Service Worker is always going to be up and running, even if your web app is not opened in the browser. Another benefit of Service Worker is that it is a programmable network proxy, which means that every single request in your application will go through that Service Worker, which allows you to control which request you want to cache and which request should actually go to the server. As a result, a Service Worker is a perfect candidate to cache data for offline use, or even to handle the application update process. And this is different from a regular web application or a regular website, because now caching is in our control, which means we're going to cache the JavaScript of the application. And so when we release a new version of the app, we basically have to handle that and detect that a new version is released, so our Service Worker can download the latest version of the JavaScript when it is online. So that's an extra step for us that we have to deal with now, and that's slightly different from a regular web application. Another thing a Service Worker can do is listen to push events from the server. So a server can push us some information, and the Service Worker would listen to that in order to notify the user. So that's something that's becoming more and more popular. If you use e-commerce websites, for instance, they would, send you a notification to say, hey, we have a new promotion, you can buy this at a discounted price and things like that. So this is becoming more and more popular. Now, as I mentioned earlier, a Service Worker has a life cycle. It's always going to be running in the background, and as a result, it has different states that it's going to go through during its life cycle. So at first, a Service Worker is going to get loaded in the browser, so it's going to be in the installing state, and if the install is successful, so if all of the files that have to be cached get cached properly, then the Service Worker becomes activated. Otherwise, it would go into an error state. And once the Service Worker is activated, it's basically going to be in idle mode most of the time. And from time to time, when you get an HTTP request, so a fetch request from the Service Worker perspective, it's going to be handled by the Service Worker, as well as any message that would come from a push event on the server, and that would result in a notification from the Service Worker. So the Service Worker is basically going to spend its time waiting in the background for either HTTP requests or push events from the server in order to do something with that. So just like manifest.json, Service Workers can be found online in many places, and we can find a lot of different examples on how to write them. This is a basic example here on the screen where we define some pre-cache URLs, and these pre-cache URLs would define all of the files we want to cache. So index.html, styles.css, main.css, as well as demo.js in that case. And then what we do is that we tell the Service Worker that during the install event to just open all of these files and cache them. And that's really just these few lines of code are going to do that and cache all of the resources defined in the array up there. And now again, the great thing is that when we use the Angular PWA module, we don't have to worry about any of this, because this code is going to be automatically generated for us.